back with another episode of From the Rafters. Sam and I are here recording on Thursday, April 8th, after the Celtics just took on the Sixers and the Knicks in back-to-back games. Very different results in those two games. Well, we can start with the Sixers game, get the bad out of the way because, well, Sam, they clapped us. They clapped the Celtics good. What are your just initial gut reaction to that one? It was tough.
Well, yeah, it was tough, but the biggest problem was they didn't have anybody to stop Embiid. And you could say what you want about the officials. Were they good? Probably not. But the Celtics turned the ball over way too much. They didn't make very good shots. They didn't take a lot of good shots. There were problems on their end aside from any other issues that are external. Internal things were going on. The effort wasn't necessarily there. The Sixers just outplayed them. One thing I do want to bitch about a little bit is the fouls. It's not Embiid's fault and it's not the officials' fault, but the league needs to change the rule for like their shooting foul calls, because when the Celtics are trying to, and anybody is trying to guard Embiid, you have two options. You either let him run you over and go right through you and you can't put up resistance and he gets an easy basket, or you do put up resistance, he bumps into you and then throws his head back and gets two free throws. There's no reason why that should be the scenario, but it is. There are other things he does that are, I guess you could say, skill things, where he purposely draws fouls, where, he like looks for somebody to extend their hand out and he'll shoot into it, things like that. But the bumping one is the biggest problem because, to guard him, you have to be able to be a little bit physical. And if he's going to, throw his head back every time you're physical with him, you're not going to be able to.
Yeah, first of all, before we even keep going here, I'm sure Sam will agree with me here. Joel Embiid's an amazing, phenomenal NBA player, regardless.
Yeah, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the problem is with the league, not him or even the officials, because they're just following the rules they're given. The league needs to make a change.
Exactly, and I agree with you wholeheartedly there. I was just clarifying before I go on my tangent, because I'm sure you'll agree with me. Joel Embiid's phenomenal, one of the best NBA players there is, top 10, 100%. But it's so frustrating when you have a guy like Luke Cornett, who is like, he looks like he's less than 100 pounds at 7'2", and he can
Jack,
stand
who
there.
Thought Luke Cornett was the answer the other day.
Yeah, okay, I was wrong.
Was
He's not the answer. There's no answer. I wasn't even saying he was the answer at the time. I just thought he'd do better than Time Lord, and you could make the argument that he did, because Time Lord didn't do too well either. Time Lord fouled out in less than 14 minutes. Also, which is horrendous. But you have a guy like Luke Cornett standing in front of Embiid, hands up. Embiid moves him back 2 feet, and Cornett gets the foul call, because that doesn't make any sense. That makes no sense whatsoever. And I know there's another foul call that you hate, that Marcus Smart got the benefit of the doubt of in one of these games, where he went around the screen. It was the first basket of the game.
That wasn't a foul. No. And it shouldn't be a foul. And that's not Marcus's fault. It's the league's fault. They need to fix it. Last night, the one where Jaylen Brown got fouled and Peyton hit him with his face, and they called it a foul. That should be a foul. It's just, I don't know. It's hard, because if he misses a shot, there is contact, and it affects the shot. But like, he made the shot. I don't know. I don't know if it should be it shouldn't be an offensive foul. I don't think either, because he was in the space. I don't know. It's a tough call. I guess the face one is not like a problem, because he wasn't doing that on purpose. But when you're taking shots like the Marcus Smart one, where you're just shooting it to draw a foul, there's a problem.
Mm-hmm. It's frustrating. And even we can even say that as the biggest Marcus Smart fans in the world, that was not a foul, and there needs to be a change. But I mentioned it a couple minutes ago. Robert Williams fouled out in under 14 minutes against Embiid. Do you think there will ever be a point where he can guard those bigger guys, and not even just Embiid, because I don't think there's a player in the NBA who can effectively guard Joel Embiid. He's too much of a monster at this point. But Robert Williams, obviously 6'8", a little undersized for the center position. He's extremely athletic, extremely talented. I love him at the starting center. But do you think there will ever be a time where he gets enough muscle, gets big enough to guard and bang down low with those guys?
Well, he is muscular, and I think given a better start to the game for him, where he's not instantly in foul trouble, he can make an impact against Embiid. Maybe not defensively, because Embiid is just a monster. But there aren't a lot of Embiids around the league. He did fine against Rudy Gobert, from what I remember. He was fine. We're going to see Sunday when they play Denver. That's going to be one to look for if you want this question to be answered. But I really think he's going to benefit, and this is something he can do against Jokic too, is by outrunning the guys that aren't as athletic as he is or in condition like him. Like Jokic and Embiid are big dudes, but they're not going to be able to keep the pace with Williams, especially if he runs the floor. He just got to stay in the game first. Jokic, fortunately for the Celtics, doesn't take advantage of the refs, the poor rules in the league like Embiid does, which is fine. And that's not a knock on Embiid. It's just something Jokic doesn't do.
And I'm fairly certain in 3 games the Celtics have played the Sixers this season, Joel Embiid has shot more free throws than the Celtics, which
he has like 50 something.
Yeah, disgusting. That's a gross stat, and I don't know. It's probably partially the Celtics' fault. Like, I'm not even gonna say it's all the refs. Obviously, like the Celtics.
I mean,
need
there
to be
are
more
definitely
aggressive.
times where they foul him because they don't want him to go up. Like it's like he's got them beaten, they foul him. The problem is not with that. The problem is when like they have no option. It's a catch-22. They either get back down underneath the basket and he gets an easy look, or they put up a fight and resist and don't back right up, and he goes and throws his head back and then just flails his arms and he gets 2 free throws.
Yeah, it's just frustrating. And you can say it's talent. You can say he's just knowing how to draw the whistles, and maybe it is. But then that just leads to the argument that it's the league's issue and they need to fix
The
it. And they
Celtics
have
did
said
not
they're
lose
doing
that
something
game
about
because
it.
of the officials. That's not
Of
what we're
course.
saying. They played awful.
They
But
played bad. And
in the grand scheme of things, even if Philly's playing against another team, I mean, that's not right. And they were saying on the broadcast, like he averages the most free throws, like in NBA history per 36 minutes, like ever, more than Harden, like anybody. He has the most. So he's exploiting the game, and the NBA needs to make a change because I don't know, it's just not right.
Yeah, it's absurd. And if you watch the games, you know it's ridiculous. But it's crazy because he doesn't need to do that to get his buckets because he's just
he's
that
the biggest,
talented.
strongest guy on the floor, and he's falling around.
Yeah, it's frustrating because he can outmuscle anybody on that
And the
court,
NBA
except he
allows
just
it.
doesn't.
They're enabling.
Well, we'll see. Props to Embiid, really talented guy. He's my pick for MVP at the moment, him or Jokic. So we'll see how.
Yeah, he's
that
a
ends up.
great player. Like I don't know, we're trying not to bitch about the officials, but we are.
It's tough.
Celtics somehow pull one out on a back-to-back with Tony Brothers both games. Can you believe that?
Yeah, Tony
I couldn't
Brothers.
believe it. I'm watching the game yesterday. I said, they got this guy again? Don't
Ah.
they like do a game and then fuck off and go somewhere else?
And Tony Brothers wasn't the one to make the most frustrating call of the game when Jaylen Brown got called for an offensive foul.
Yes, he was.
Driving in transition.
It was him.
That wasn't Tony. That wasn't Tony.
You
I
sure
heard
it wasn't?
Tony. I thought it was Tony, and then Keith Smith
maybe it
tweeted
wasn't then.
that it wasn't. But yeah, I trust Keith Smith usually, but I also thought it was Tony. But
my favorite is when they review a call like that and it just stands. It's like
that makes no sense because he didn't do any. Whatever, man.
I'm so happy the NBA is reviewing the challenge rule. Like Shams tweeted this stuff the other day, and I was like, ecstatic. They're gonna review the challenge rule. There's gonna be possibly like 1 per half, or if you are successful, you get another one. Because in all honesty, you use the challenge early on, regardless if you win or lose it. It screws you late because there were calls later in the game that the Celtics could have used. The one where Tristan Thompson knocked the ball out of Noel's hands and they called the foul was one for instance they could have challenged, and they couldn't because they don't have it. And they're also going to look into the jumping into people on the shots, which thank goodness. I mean, it's about time.
Maybe instead of adjusting the challenge rule, you just adjust how well your refs are refereeing the games. How about that? How about they miss less calls and get more of them right?
Jack,
I mean,
refereeing is not easy, and I'm not being sarcastic.
Of course not.
It's not easy.
Of course,
but the counter argument to that is like these dudes are literally reffing at the top level. Like they're the equivalent. Like they are to refereeing what the NBA players are to basketball. Like they are the top of the top, so they shouldn't make as many mistakes. But it's still very difficult.
No,
I don't know if I used to do it back in the day. It's not easy.
But I'm just saying, it seems like this season, it's getting progressively worse and worse. And maybe that's the rules. It feels
like they've had a tough whistle over the last week or so. I agree with you. Doesn't it feel like they've been just getting absolutely screwed? But
yes.
I don't think it's the refs, Jack. I think it's the rules. The rules are the problem.
That's also very possible. That's also very possible. You never know. But what else annoys me is just less so them making the wrong calls at the times, but them being so inconsistent with the calls they're making. Because sometimes they'll follow these rules and sometimes they'll follow it the other way.
I
Okay.
think they've been consistently bad on both sides sometimes. But I agree where you're seeing like for example, against Philadelphia, they were very quick to call ticky-tacky fouls, even ones that didn't result in free throws, just like, a reach or a bump, whatever. But they
Yeah.
would not call it if Tatum gets bumped and loses the ball. I don't get it. Maybe there's something that we don't understand about the rule. And
Which is
then,
possible. Very
yeah,
possible.
it's very possible. I mean, they're the ones refereeing. They know. But like, I don't know. It's very interesting how soft they can be at times and then let them play at other times, sometimes in the same game.
Just give me Scott Foster and Tony Brothers for every Celtics game. Just make my life a real hell. And that'd be real fun. But yeah, I mean, building off of that, you mentioned Tatum. Tatum over these past two games has just looked so unwilling to drive to the basket. And I know you've talked about it, we've talked about it, but like what the hell? Like he just settles for these step backs. And you mentioned specifically in that Sixers game, like he'll get a big on him at the perimeter, and instead of driving past him using his speed, he'll just take a step back. And that makes no sense because that's not something he's always done, right? I feel like in years past he'd be more willing to drive, but this year there's something I don't know what's going on there.
Maybe it's like a mental block at the beginning of games because last night specifically, he was
Yeah.
really
Okay.
bad in the first half, but then he started to drive in the second half and it was fine.
Hmm.
And I've said it to you on the pregame probably more than on this that he's got to start the game by driving to the basket. And then when he's
Yes.
feeling good, then you start taking the tough shots. Instead of coming out and your first shot being a difficult sidestep three, and then you start the game for like 1 for 5. And
Yeah, I
it
agree.
makes it harder for the Celtics to get going, and it's a reason why we've started to see them fall behind in games lately, rather than choke them away at the end, which I still prefer. Um, they actually won a close
Yeah.
game yesterday. I'm very happy about that,
Yeah.
and he was decent down the stretch, even though he did some
Mhm.
things that really frustrate. He's been really frustrating me, as you know. But
One thing
I'm
that,
overreacting for sure.
yeah, one thing that specifically frustrates me, I saw a lot in the first half of the Knicks game because it was Tatum and the rest lineup, right? It was one of those, but I mean, there was Robert Williams in there too. The Tatum and the rest lineup is not nearly as bad as it used to be because of Robert Williams, Marcus Smart, and all these
It's
other
only going
guys.
to get better because of Fournier when
Exactly.
he's back. So
Yes. But
that's why that is so important to this team because it allows Tatum not to have all that pressure. And I
well, what
think
I'm
sometimes
seeing,
go ahead.
yeah,
I'll go
I'm
after you.
seeing just Tatum on one side of the floor and they double team him or whatever, and then when he doesn't get his look, he just dumps it to the other four guys to make offense. And that doesn't make any sense. Because Tatum should be running the offense, having these guys run off ball screens, but it's literally just Tatum ISO on this side of the floor, the rest of the guys on this side of the floor, and when Tatum can't get a bucket, he passes it and dumps it off to the rest, and they have to figure it out. And that's just doesn't make any sense. And you can't tell me if you sit there and tell me that Brad Stevens needs to be fired, you cannot sit there and tell me that that's Brad Stevens' form of offense. That makes no sense, and I will not sit here and have that.
Yeah, Tatum lately has been running a lot of him one side isolation and everyone else on the other side. However, at the end of the last game against the Knicks, you can clearly see that the effort he was making to move the ball. And I think that's something that's going to come with maturity where he's starting to make reads, even though it's frustrating for me to watch him, throw the ball out of bounds or make the wrong pass or whatever. He's getting there, and I think he might be really working to improve on that. It's not really something you can see. It's not like you see videos on Twitter of him, throwing the ball across the gym to like a dummy.
Yeah.
Like he's probably watching film or whatever, however they do that. Um, the one play that really like had me like irate was they're up by 1 point. He's got the ball. The double team is like showing. So there's two guys,
Yeah.
one guy on him, two is really like creeping over. Jaylen Brown's on the other side of the court, jumping up and down on the 3-point line, open with his hands up. No pass, turnover. I mean, come on. How do you not see that? I was screaming at my TV, and that's not. I usually don't see things off the ball when I watch. I watch on the ball. I'm a casual watcher, I guess, if you will, or I'm not an advanced analytical watcher. Whatever. I just watch the ball.
No, yeah. I mean, it's ridiculous. And that even trails back to the Sixers game when Jaylen Brown took 10 shots. He took
He got
10
shots
shots the
yesterday.
whole
That's for
game.
sure.
he did a good job getting his shots, and evidently the difference between Tatum and Brown getting 20 plus shots is a W. And I'm not saying Jayson Tatum's not an amazing basketball player. He is, and if the Celtics lost Jayson Tatum, they would be in shambles. He's a great player. He's the leader of the team, or one of them. So that's not what I'm saying. But you can't tell me that it is not a fact that in these past two games, when Tatum gets more shots, they lost, and then when Brown got more shots, they won. Probably a coincidence. Definitely not a stat you could use to, judge the two of them. But I'd rather have the ball in Brown's hands right now than Tatum's. And I'm not trying to pit them against each other because I've learned my lesson on that one. But right now, at this moment in time, on April 8th, Thursday, after the doubleheader, I would rather have the ball in Brown's hands than Tatum's throughout the game running the offense. What do you think?
I'd like it in Marcus's hands, to be honest with you. I think he did no, I'm not even doing like a
no,
bit.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think he did a good
fair.
job yesterday. 9 assists. He had a great fourth quarter, 14 points. I was oh man, I was in heaven. All the doubters watching him drill the three. You had my man, oh man, what is his friggin' name? Hold on. You talk for a second. What the hell is this guy's name?
Is he a Knicks player or a Celtics
No,
player?
no,
Or is it a guy tweeted about it?
Dude,
I got you. But
the dude that I sent his
yeah.
what the hell is
I
his
know who
name?
you're talking about. No, but yeah, Marcus Smart.
You got my man Matty Ice telling all the haters to relax, and he's gonna come for him if they keep talking about Marcus Smart. That was, if you haven't seen it, I retweeted it yesterday at Sam LaFrance NBA. It is probably one of the funniest things that I've seen somebody do on Twitter, just like talking into their camera.
Very funny. Very
Maybe
funny.
we'll have to get him on the show sometime.
Marcus was clutch. He was clutch down the stretch, and he effectively,
Which he has,
I don't want to say won the game.
In fairness to the people talking shit, he hasn't been all season. The stats will tell you that, unfortunately. But historically, I feel like he has been. I feel like he's played his best basketball when the shot clock's running down or it's late in the fourth quarter and he's making the big plays. And, something KJ has said is we haven't seen a lot of winning plays this year from Marcus, which had been somewhat fair. I'll never admit it, but they just hadn't been in the situation for him to make winning plays. I don't think they couldn't get themselves there, and they were in it yesterday. He had the biggest play of the game for me was not a 3-pointer, it was the offensive rebound he got and put it right back up. That was a huge play from him. Mm-hmm. He still makes the winning plays. I don't know. Kemba will be back Friday. They got the Timberwolves. So help me God if they lose that game.
Yeah. I will say, I think minus some of the sloppy turnovers, yesterday was like a perfect blueprint for a Celtics win. You know what I'm saying? Tatum and Brown leading the way in scoring. Marcus Smart third. The rest of the guys doing their job. Obviously no Kemba, so that will help even more. But in terms of these back-to-backs games, and if Kemba's hurt for some reason, that's the blueprint. And plus, you're going to have Fournier back. And Thompson coming back was much more impactful than I would have been.
Yeah, that was a throwaway for me. I was like, who the hell cares if he's coming back? He's going to be lethargic. He didn't play well offensively, in fairness. That was one of the things I was thinking about. I was like, well, we saw at the beginning of the season, he wasn't really making his hook shots. He picked it up on the West Coast trip, specifically Golden State. And then he was looking a lot better than he got COVID. But he was great defensively, and he did outshine Robert Williams, who had just an average day for him, not anything special.
Average day 6 and 10, which is crazy that that's average for him now. I love it. I love it that 10 rebounds is
blocking shots all over the place.
Yeah,
but the best part about yesterday, well, there's two great things. One, they executed down the stretch and won a close game, which they haven't done, and two, they won a game where they didn't play good. Mm-hmm. They didn't make a lot of shots. They turned the ball over a lot, which isn't okay. Missing shots is more okay than that. You're going to miss shots. Turning over the ball, you can control. But they won a game where they didn't have to play like perfect. And that hasn't been something we've seen a lot this year. It's always they're shooting like 55% from the field if they're blowing teams out because they don't win close games. Jaylen Brown's making pull-ups over dudes from the free throw line. Tatum is sidestepping on the three and drilling it. Didn't happen yesterday. Brown had an inefficient night for him, and Tatum wasn't really that great. He picked it up in the second half, but he had a very poor start to the game. And so did Marcus Smart, and then he picked it up.
I was going to say, yeah.
So
overall,
all those guys buckled up at the end, and they came through, which is we need to see more of that towards the end of the season. If you want to see a turnaround from this team and you want them to make a run in the playoffs, they need to be able to execute like that consistently because they're not going to be able to win if they can't.
100%. Did you see Tristan Thompson's comments after the game?
Yeah, about what? About COVID?
There were three subjects, or four even, that
he talked about
stood out to
COVID.
me.
He said he had all the symptoms, and he said it was like he went 12 rounds with it. He said, I believe he said something about the media. Oh, he was mad. He was mad at Kevin O'Connor.
He did.
Yeah, was that the one you're talking about?
Yeah, there's two more, but he called out KOC. He's basically by name. He was like, "Yeah, I know his name now." He said enough about like he went right at him. It was hilarious. So shout out Tristan Thompson. He also said that Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum, he's like, they're going through growing pains. It's up to me and Kemba
I did see
to
that.
support them, which is good. And then
the
last thing was, it really does, because this is really their first season. Yeah, and the last one was, he was like, quote, "I think winning a bunch of games in the regular season is a bunch of horse shit." He went on to rattle off how his Cleveland teams regularly beat higher seeds in the playoffs. Being healthy for the playoffs is what matters to me.
It's different. So the Celtics don't have a LeBron type player where they just dominate like a series. Like maybe Tatum will do that. He's had good playoff series in the past. He's been a good playoff player for the most part. Brown has too. Marcus has too. I mean, you got a lot of guys that are playoff players, but I don't think they're guys that you would talk about flipping a switch. You know what I'm saying? With the Cavs, it was different. They would flip a switch. But going back to the Tatum and Brown like growing pains thing, I think that's a fair assessment. I don't think, including myself, we all, acknowledge that enough because we've seen them both be successful and play well on good teams so far in their young careers that we don't realize that even though they are good players, they're still learning a lot, especially without Kemba being there consistently, not being great when he first came back. Now he's good, but he still misses those games every once in a while, to where they have to be the ones making the decisions, running the offense, being the focal point of a defense. It's a little different for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. This is their first year actually having control of the team realistically, right? Because obviously Kemba was out to start the year. It was all on them. And they started off doing a great job, but everyone goes through those growing pains. Like not everyone was able to lead a team right off in their first year. And you can say Tatum did that last year, but realistically Kemba was the leader for the first half of the season at the very least. And so Tatum had like an easy transition and Kemba was still there. And now this is Brown's first shot at it, plus COVID, plus everything going on. It's got to be super hard for them. And if you look at all the teams that are leading the way for the standings, right? It's Giannis, obviously, massive superstar. The Nets, who have three of the best players in the NBA. You have the Sixers, who have Joel Embiid, who's having the best season of his career by far. You have the Lakers out there with LeBron. You have Kawhi on the Clippers. You have Chris Paul on the Suns. You have guys who've done it before, realistically. And Tatum and Brown haven't. And this is not a representation of what they can be for the future, at least in my opinion. You have to imagine that they'll be able to grow and be better in the future, even past the season. But that being said, I do think that the playoffs come around and the Celtics aren't going to go down without a fight. They're a playoff team. The Celtics have always been a good playoff team. You can't tell me that they're going to roll over, especially if they're in the play-in. If they're in the play-in, they're going to fight. I just hope I'd love to see them
play-in. Yeah. Until yesterday, I didn't actually know. Like I kept hearing that 7 was going to play 8 and 9 was going to play 10, and to me that made no sense. I was like, why wouldn't 7 play 10 and 8 play 9?
Wait.
And then I figured out that like 7 and 8 have to lose 2 games to lose out of the playoffs. And I was like, all right, that makes more sense.
Oh, wait, what? How does it work?
So 7 plays 8 and the winner is in the playoffs no matter what.
Okay.
9 plays 10 and the winner of that game plays the loser of 7 and 8. And then the winner of that game gets the last spot.
Really?
I didn't know that. I thought it was just 2 games, not 3. For the longest time, they kept saying 7 versus 8. I was like, why are they doing that? That makes no sense.
That makes a lot of sense, though.
That is honestly the most fair way they could do it. Now that I think about it, I was like, well, that is fair.
I like that. I actually really like that format a lot better. I hope one of these lower tier teams makes a run, or not even a run, just like gets through that play-in. Like I feel like the play-in's gonna be so entertaining this year, especially in the West. Like the East is fine, but
let's talk about the play-in, Jack. Who's gonna be in the play-in the East? It's probably not gonna be the Celtics. That's without bias, because Charlotte. No. Charlotte is without two of their main players now for a month.
A few
They're going to
weeks, yeah.
fall off a bit.
Just won last night though. Hopefully,
They play
hopefully they
against
start to fall off.
yesterday.
Let me double check. I don't think it was a very good team, but they won regardless. It was the Thunder. So, like I said, not a very good team.
Put it on the
But
fridge.
hey, Celtics almost blew that too. No, yeah.
They blew the doors off at the end.
Hey, and don't sleep on my man Terry Rozier. So we shall see what happens. But yeah, realistically, you're probably right. The Hornets probably will have a little bit of a fall off with no Ball, no Hayward, no Monk for a couple weeks. The Hawks have been on fire. I'll give them credit. They're
Glad the
playing
Celtics
really,
are
really
done
good
playing
basketball
them this year. To be honest with you, I'm so glad they're done playing them.
Mm-hmm. If I had to realistically guess who's getting that 4, 5, 6, I'd probably go Hawks, Heat, Celtics in whatever order you want to put it in.
I hope the Celtics get 4 or 5. It gives them the
Yeah.
best chance to get out of the first round. Because if you get 6, you got to play probably Milwaukee. Even though the Celtics have had their way with Milwaukee this year, they played kind of bad at opening night, and they blew them out, and then they blew the lead. So they barely won that one.
I'd rather them play Milwaukee than either of the other two teams.
Yeah. And then game 2, they lose because Tice misses a shot, and they played bad. They didn't play a complete game. Then they blew the doors off in the next day or the next game.
Yeah. So I'd rather play Giannis and the Bucks over the Nets super team or Embiid because Embiid's killed the Celtics all year, and that's
they still don't have an answer for it. Maybe Thompson helps a little bit more if he's back up to speed more than he was in January. Yeah. I don't know if he helps, Tuesday if he came back and played, but I think it helps a little bit. It gives you more bodies to throw at him, that's for sure. Robert Williams probably doesn't get in foul trouble as fast.
Exactly. I'd say that too. I think if Rob stays out of foul trouble for a little longer, I think he can do at least some sort of good job against Embiid. But so the play-in, realistically, we're looking at the Hawks, Heat, Celtics, Hornets, Knicks, Pacers, Bulls, Raptors, Cavs, Wizards, right? And I don't think the Magic or Pistons have a chance in hell. You could argue the Wizards are slowly losing their chance as well. But what 4 teams are you looking at for that play-in, and how do you see it playing out? Let's do a little prediction segment here. We'll do it for the West too, but starting in the East because I feel.
Let me look at the whole standings, Jack. Give me 1 sec. You can read the West too.
So I'll read the West standings as well. Jazz and Suns. First of all, shout out that game last night. It was absolutely incredible. Donovan Mitchell hitting a shot to send it to OT. Suns almost have the best record in the Western Conference. Jazz still hold it by a game and a half, but Jazz, Suns, Clippers, Nuggets, Lakers at 5, a little fall off since LeBron and AD went down. Blazers at 6, Mavs, Grizzlies, Spurs, Warriors.
Lakers
Pelicans,
are at 5?
Kings, Thunder, Rockets, Wolves. Yeah, they're at 5 because LeBron and AD have been out. They're falling off a little bit.
Let's see.
And Jokic has been
they're still far away from that play-in tournament.
Yeah, no, there's no shot they get stuck in the play-in.
Oh, I'd be so pumped. You have no idea if they got screwed in the play-in, they lose. Oh, I'd be so pumped. All right, let's see.
It would be hilarious.
Celtics are a game behind Charlotte and Atlanta at 4 and 5. Okay, so you've got Toronto's not getting in. They sold
the playoffs
at the
really.
Yeah, they're not getting in. Cleveland is not going to get in.
Okay.
Chicago, I can't believe their record's what it is.
Yeah, they should be better. They really should be better.
They're 3 and 7 in their last 10.
Yeah, they've not been good. They're blowing it slowly. Levine has been dealing with an injury, I know, which I know you don't like Levine, but he's He's their star player. Him dealing with an injury is pretty big for them.
See when he gets back how good he is. That's going to be whether Sam is right or wrong.
Playing through the injury right now.
Levine. Oh, he's playing through it?
Yeah.
Let me get my violin. You're out there. You're fair game. That's what they said about Hayward, right?
Fair enough.
All right, let's see. Back to the task at hand. Charlotte will be in the play-in. They're going to fall off. They're only a game out right now. Celtics have a soft schedule from what I have been told and heard, towards the end of the season. They've got 2 games against Miami left, which will be something to be heralded.
I can read you their upcoming games if you'd like to know the schedule.
I'd imagine the Knicks will be in the play-in too.
The Celtics schedule over the next little bit is not.
Well, they're going out west. No, I'm talking. I'm talking about like in the grand scheme, not like next week. I'm talking about like.
Yeah, I mean next week is half the schedule left almost, but they have
Let's see. I'll tell you right now. They play Minnesota, who sucks.
Nuggets, who are really good.
They play Denver, who's good.
Lakers should be
Portland,
easy.
they should beat the Lakers. They should beat Golden State. They should beat Chicago. Phoenix will be a good game. They'll
That
probably
should be
lose to
a good
Brooklyn.
game.
They should beat Charlotte, OKC, Charlotte again. I mean, they should beat the Spurs, but you know them. And then they play in May. They've
Portland
got
again.
Portland, who is a good team, Orlando, Chicago, Miami twice, Cleveland, Minnesota, and the Knicks.
So, like you said, grand scheme of things, it's not too bad, but they do have some tough games up, like coming soon. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like the
No, they
Nuggets,
do.
Blazers. Yeah. But I agree with you overall. They
Oh,
have
we're gonna have to be up late next week. Last week. Oh, I'm not looking forward to it. I hate the
Western
West Coast,
Conference.
man.
But yeah. So predict your 7, 8, 9, 10 in the East, and then we'll go through how we think it's gonna play out.
7 realistically should be the Pacers, but who knows?
I mean,
Pacers
TJ
should be
McConnell had a crazy game last night. He
the
had
Pacers
19
should
and
be
15.
significantly better than what their record is. Nobody's talking about that. They're all talking about the
Yeah.
Celtics. Okay, so let's say Pacers will. I feel like they'll get up to the 7 seed. They're only 2 games out of it right now.
Okay.
Charlotte will fall down maybe 8 because they're so far ahead of the rest of the field. Well, actually, no. No, Knicks will be 8 or 7.
Okay.
And then Charlotte will probably get as far as 9 because Chicago's kind of far behind them, and Chicago will probably be the last team.
Okay. So then you got Pacers, Hornets at 7, 8, and then no, I'm sorry. You have Pacers, Knicks at 7, 8, Hornets, Bulls at 9, 10. So who wins that 7, 8? Pacers, Knicks.
Well, if the record right now says it'll be the Knicks, but the Pacers have probably more talent. I mean, they've got Brogdon, LeVert, Warren, Sabonis, Turner. They should be a lot better than their record is. Nobody's talking about that.
Yes. So you got Pacers in that one.
I got the Pacers.
I tend to agree with you there. And then what is it? Bulls, Hornets. I know who I'm picking, but
I don't know. I haven't seen the Bulls play yet with their new team. I mean, by then the Hornets will probably be healthy. So you gotta go with the Hornets. That's a good team.
Mm-hmm. And then I'm taking Hornets over Knicks if it's me in the next one. But
depends who's healthy.
Yeah. Okay.
I still don't understand why the Knicks are good, to be honest with you, but they are.
And
gave the Celtics a hard time 2 games.
Shout out them. They're one of the best defensive teams in the league, is why.
Yeah.
Which is very weird, but shout out Tom Thibodeau for that. And let's see. Let's look at West for a sec. West, I would say, is definitely more interesting than the East. But if you want to pull it up,
I will be over the moon if the Lakers get in the play-in.
There's no shot. They get stuck
They're
in the
3.5 games out right now. Oh,
no way.
I don't open up my browser.
My play-in prediction, I'm gonna say probably the 4 teams in it right now. I'm just gonna go Mavericks, Grizzlies, Spurs, Warriors, because I don't think the Pelicans are nearly consistent enough to get there. They've been so weirdly inconsistent this season. I will say the only thing I could predict is the Kings making a push for it because they have been good as of late, or at least playing better.
They've lost 4 in a row.
Okay, well, before that, they're an extremely, from what I was hearing, maybe it was 4 days ago when I was looking, but I know they're one of the streakiest teams in basketball.
Yeah, no, so, yeah. That's usually how it is for teams around there. I mean, the Celtics.
Yeah, before they lost 4 in a row. Before they lost 4 in a row, they had won 5 in a row. Before that, so they're very weird. But yeah, I'll probably say Mavericks at 7. I'll probably keep it in the order: Mavericks, Grizzlies. I'll say Warriors, Spurs, and say Steph carries the Warriors.
Let's see what Dallas has coming up. They play Milwaukee today.
Definitely interesting.
I wonder if that's a national.
It's crazy. It's crazy that the West 7 seed is 8 games above 500.
Yeah,
6 games above 500. That's really so sad.
They would be 4th in the East and probably only a couple games behind 3 games behind Milwaukee.
Crazy, wild, but yeah. Western Conference playoffs is going to be definitely interesting. If I had to predict, I'd say Grizzlies win that first matchup, and the Warriors sneak in there past the Grizzlies and Spurs as well, because Steph Curry's a monster.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to play against Steph Curry in a play-in game. That's for sure.
100%.
Who knows? Maybe we'll get LeBron versus Curry in the play-in. I would love that. It probably won't happen, but I want it to happen so bad.
No, not at all. But yeah, that's all the Celtics and NBA stuff I had overall to talk about. I do have more this or that game for
All
us
right,
to
cool.
talk about. But is there anything you had before we get to that?
No, no. Oh, let's actually we can do that last. Go ahead.
All right. So first of all, they're weird today. They're weirder. They're mainly Celtics based.
All
But
right.
I'll start off with this. You have to have one of these two guys as your starting center on the Celtics team. Robert Williams to be on the bench or whatever, right?
All right.
You have to pick Jared Sullinger or Brandon Bass as your starting center. Who are you taking?
I mean, when they were here, they were both playing forward.
Hmm.
Probably
They both
probably
played some
Brandon
small.
Bass because he was like consistent. You
Okay.
know, when he was with the Celtics, he was really consistent.
Mhm. I was a big fan of Jared Sullinger, though. I'll be the first to admit. I was a big Jared Sullinger
Oh,
guy.
I
He was
liked
just
him
a little
too.
bit of he was a little bit thick, as they say.
I liked
But
Sillinger a
big
lot.
boy. He was dope. But number two, I'll expand the question a little further. But if you could have any, not, I don't want to make it any Celtic because I'm not talking like Kelly Olynyk. I'm not talking these main role player guys. I'm talking guys who very rarely ever played for the Celtics back on this team who you'd shoot. Because I was talking with Tim about this last night. Abdel Nader is shooting 40% from three this season on 2 attempts a game for the Suns, who are a good team. PJ Dozier's playing elite defense for the Nuggets this season and shooting 33% from deep on a lot of attempts, playing 20 minutes a night. Max Strus is shooting league average from three on 4 attempts a night for the Heat. Like guys like that. If you could choose any of those types of guys to come back for the Celtics and play a role on this team this year, who would it be?
That's a good question. I think I feel like they could use PJ Dozier a lot. He's athletic. He's shooting all right. The defense is really helpful, but I mean, they also could benefit from a shooter like Nader or Strus. But I'd probably say Dozier.
Hmm.
I'm trying to think if there's
Yeah.
anybody else. I mean, I'd like to see Rondo. That'd be a lot of fun, wouldn't it?
I
He's an answer.
don't know if that counts as one of those types of minor players. I think he played a pretty solid role while he was here, in my opinion. But I'd probably lean Abdel Nader for that 40% shooting because that's nasty. It's
Trying to think.
converted the
Trying to think of other
Suns.
guys that got rid of that didn't really like play a lot for the
I
Celtics.
couldn't find any. I looked for a bunch of them last night and I couldn't find any
Crowder
big
really
names.
doesn't fit, but he's another one that would be a good return.
And that's my
Um,
next question for you. My
all
next
right, go
question
ahead.
was it Jay Crowder or Marcus Morris? Or realistically, you can take any of that level of players back. You know what I'm saying? So
I
like you can
think
take Kelly Olynyk, you can take other guys.
I think Marcus Morris helps a lot.
Really?
I mean, not Marcus Morris. I'm so sorry, Crowder. I think Crowder
I was
helps
gonna
more than
say.
Morris. I think he fits better. I think Morris might
Yeah.
be a better player if you're like needing someone to like be one of the better players on your team. But if you need a role player, then Crowder's your guy. Probably he plays defense. He can shoot. Avery Bradley might not be bad, but he isn't really good anymore.
Mhm.
Can't wear the same number. That would bother me too. Crowder couldn't either. I don't know. That'd be tough.
I'm sure Taco would give him his number back.
I don't know.
I wouldn't surprise me. I was surprised when you said Morris. I was like, really? There's no shot I'd take
Yeah, I
Morris
was
over.
too. I was surprised when I said it.
All right, this one I know what your answer is going to be, but I have to ask you anyways. And I want you to. I was going to say I want you to be as unbiased as
Should I
possible. But
entertain it
I think
first? Should I sell it?
yes,
All right.
yes. Resign Fournier or resign Smart. I was going to include Kemba, but I know your answer wouldn't be Kemba for any of those. So those three, Kemba, Smart, Fournier. I'll make it this: resign two of them. The other one has to walk. Who are you resigning?
Well, the first two. I mean, a
Fournier and
smart
Smart.
Fournier. Yeah. I
Okay.
mean, it's a no brainer, right? And I mean, Kemba's just not at the current rate. He's not in the future of the team. Whether they re-sign him on a smaller deal and he's a bench scorer, like a spark plug, maybe. Maybe I'm not out on Kemba yet either. It's just I like the other two guys a lot. Maybe not Fournier yet. He's only played 2 or 3 games, but
He's been
Smart.
hot though. It's been
Yeah, I
hot.
think Smart. I mean, you got to keep him around.
So Smart, Fournier, Kemba in that order of
Yeah,
importance.
as my man
Okay.
Matty Ice said on Twitter yesterday, championship means nothing without Marcus Smart.
Hmm. Gotcha. All right. So my next question, I'm gonna pull up the Celtics roster here just so I don't, you know, forget anybody important. But my next question is along those same lines because realistically speaking, the Celtics roster is a bunch of young guys, like a ton of young guys who are going to need to be re-signed soon, right? Whether it's in next year, the year after, 2 years after that, it's a bunch of young guys who need to be re-signed. So I'm talking this realm of people. Neesmith, Langford, Grant Williams, Carson Edwards, Shemi Ojale, Peyton Pritchard. I won't include Robert Williams because I think he separated himself a little bit. You can only re-sign 2 of them.
Pritchard and
right?
Langford.
Langford, he's jumped up there for you?
Well, he's played decent. He played like a little bit of a dope at the beginning of the game, but he had some big plays yesterday. Nice step back 3. He's played good defense since coming back. Pritchard, of course, I mean, he's a lock as of now. He plays consistently. He has really impactful nights more than any of those guys. Maybe Shemi is like another one, but I don't know. He's not going to make any money somewhere else.
Hey, I want to shout out my main man Grant for being rotational again. He's back in the rotation.
Grant played decent yesterday. He had a nice dive on the floor play.
He doesn't even need to score. He didn't score a single point yesterday, and you notice his impact. That's Grant Williams for you. That's my man.
I don't know if I noticed his impact, but I remember he drove on the floor.
That's impact. Come on. There you go. No, yeah, I think I'd probably lean towards Langford and Pritchard as well. Maybe Grant over Langford, but
I don't know. Neesmith is a sleeper candidate because we haven't really seen anything from him yet. Like as fans, we don't know what his potential is.
You never know. It annoys me that Carson Edwards has fallen out of the rotation, even though I understand because he doesn't do much. Like I wish he would do more. Is my point. I wish he could be doing more because I think he has the potential to. But yeah,
he's going to go to another team, and people are going to be really mad that he's good all of a sudden.
And Tremont Waters has just disappointed us. We are huge fans coming into.
Yeah, we were all over Tremont Waters, weren't we, Jack?
Really were, and he looked good last year. He's just kind of this season, so not great.
The size is catching up to him, I think, unfortunately for him. Yeah. Even though he had nice layup in garbage time a couple days ago. Nice move.
If that's the highlight we're talking about, it's probably not ideal. But the last question I had for you is not including Rondo. You're not allowed to use Rondo as an answer to this question. I purposefully left him out because I knew he would be your answer. You can add a prime Pierce, a prime Garnett, or a prime Ray Allen to this team and keep out bias because I know you don't like Ray Allen. Just think of his game. To this team, who would you add?
Not Pierce, even though I love him, just because he's too similar to Tatum and Brown. I'd probably say Garnett. I think they could use somebody to kick him in the ass. Even current Garnett as a bench coach would be pretty nice. Yeah. I think he'd bring intensity. He would get those guys going. He'd be a good leader. Ray Allen, he'd be beneficial too, just because of his shooting and he has good work ethic. Obviously, I mean the guy was like a machine. But Garnett probably is the best one. He fills more of a need.
That's what I'd go with too.
And if he played today, he'd be shooting threes without a doubt.
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah, he'd give us a little bit of shooting. Give the Celtics some much needed paint defense. And if there's anybody to shut down Embiid, you take prime Garnett through him there. He'll do a pretty solid job if you ask me. But yeah, that's all the.
Make Embiid have to go to therapy. Poor guy. Like, oh my God, the things he would say to Embiid.
That's all the this or that I got for you, though. So you said there was one other thing you wanted to bring up?
Yeah, the Celtics stole the name of his podcast.
Yeah, I knew it. Yeah, they released their first episode today with Danny Ainge, so already leaping us in terms of guests. But yeah, that was a little punch to the gut. We've been doing this it's been a podcast since 2019, and they just hopped on the wave. I suppose, stealing the name, but
he didn't steal it like exactly like they did from the guys that stole our name.
Yeah,
first, you know.
Yeah,
hey,
multiple.
We had our name stolen one time, but like didn't really matter. But like this time it matters.
Yeah, this one's a little like there are other podcasts called From the Rafters out there. I know there's one specifically that's just like 2 guys talking like wrestling or something. But to come into the Celtics small niche as the Boston Celtics and kind of yoink the name, it's a little bit of disappointing. But
I'm sure it's an excellent product, but
yeah, I'm sure it's very entertaining. I mean, Abby Chin, Mark D'Amico, Sean Grandy, Kendrick Perkins, and Danny Ainge is the first guest. Like, I'd listen to it. It's just, it's tough when they take the name. So, yeah, appreciate all the support you guys have given us.
Yeah, a lot of likes on Jack's tweets complaining about it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But, yeah, I mean, obviously, we want no beef with the Celtics. We would like to keep a professional, kind relationship. It's just upsetting, I suppose, to see that they, to some degree, stole the name, or unintentionally, or I can't imagine it was intentional. it's tough to see. But yeah, that's all I had for today's episode. Like, is that all you had to
Yeah,
bring
no,
up?
I'm
I
good.
mean, yeah,
Don't think I have anything
was
else.
I was also going to bring that up because I saw them tweet about it, and I had a couple guys DM me saying, "Wow, that's brutal, man," because they just
One of my
couldn't
friends
they?
hit up
But
our group chat yesterday. He was like, "Oh, how do you feel about that?" And I was like, "Oh,
yeah,
Jack's not happy about it."
yeah. I mean, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. It's frustrating at the very least, but
Not convinced there's anything we can do about it, but we'll see.
exactly. But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening or watching if you're on YouTube. You guys can follow me at Jack Simone NBA. Follow us at Bannertown USA on Twitter. And Sam, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for listening so much or watching. If you're watching, like, share, subscribe. If you're listening, tell your friends. I don't know, leave a good review if that's what people do on
Leave a rating on
podcasts.
Apple Podcasts. There you go.
Yeah.
Or follow on Spotify. You can follow on
Oh, you can
Spotify.
follow on Spotify. Follow on Spotify. Yeah, thank you so much for listening. Follow Jack at Jack Simone NBA. Follow at Bannertown USA if you you want to join the fight against the power, right? You can do that. I don't know. You can tweet at them, tell them they've stolen something that isn't theirs.
And shout out Hayden Jones commenting under the Celtics page about us. We appreciate that, my man.
Yeah.
Shout out you.
Right. Yep. So that's it. You can follow me at Sam LaFrance NBA. That's our show for today. Bye.
Tic tackle. Come on.